Iowa City's Other News. This is the August 30th edition, and we'll be talking about local food and the From Field to Family Festival, which is coming up this September 11th, 11th, thanks, through 14th. We've got a little flyer here, and we've got guests, too, to talk with us today. Dave Burt, chef and co-owner at Red Avocado, Chef Kurt Michael Fries from Devotee and director of Slow Food Iowa, and Teresa Carberry from Philadelphia, but now in Iowa City. She's an education director at New Pioneer Co-op in Iowa City, as well as on the planning committee for the From Field to Family Festival. Thank you all for joining us today. You also see we have some other guests here on the table. I don't know if we can get a close-up of these, but Dave and Kurt and Teresa have been nice enough to bring in all kinds of local foods to assist us in our discussion of this festival and what's happening with local foods in Iowa. So yeah, let's get started. I just want to hear from all of you, why local foods? I mean, just the big picture. What attracted you to this cause?
Well,
Teresa.
From Field to Family is an opportunity to sort of celebrate and showcase our local food producers. And the chefs do such a great job with the local food, sort of bringing out great recipes and interpretations. We love the farmers market. We're going to have a demo at the farmers market. We have benefits for some of our favorite nonprofits. So the culinary festival is just a chance to for everyone to meet everybody, to have a good time, and of course there's many reasons why we would like to support our local growers.
Right on.
You get a chance to learn something along the way, you know, like Pat Albert, if you're not careful, you might learn something before it's done. We have a couple of great guests coming and speaking and reading during the weekend. Gary Paul Nabhan, author of Coming Home to Eat and his more recent Singing the Turtles to Sea. And he runs the Center for Environmental Studies, I believe it's called, at Northern Arizona University. And Kent Wheely, who with his wife Diane founded Seed Savers up in Decorah, which is just an Iowa treasure. They've been working on preserving heirloom seed varieties. And Slow Food did a trip up there to visit just a couple of weeks ago, and it is astounding, the depth and breadth of what they are accomplishing up there. Really, really amazing. I encourage everyone to go up to Decorah and visit. It's beautiful gardens and really an amazing place.
All right. Dave?
Yeah, well, that covers the festival pretty well. And just back to local food, I think the key thing is it's the most effective way to strengthen your local economy is to buy local products. And here, I mean, you can see the wealth of food we can grow here. There's just no point in flying food in from California to sit on a shelf for 2 weeks when you can get it picked that day and eat it that day. In terms of health, nutrition, economics, the cultural and social aspect of being at the market, it's just great for the town.
All right. Well, the From Field to Family Festival is coming up real soon. Maybe Teresa, can you walk us through some of these events?
Sure, I'd love to.
Give us an idea of what's happening.
Well, there's a culinary walk, and this is a benefit for our three organizations. From Field to Family is one, Table to Table Food Rescue Operation is another, and the third is Slow Food Iowa. So the culinary walk is just going to be a great time where people can visit 7 establishments in the downtown Iowa City area, sort of stroll from place to place and have a plate of food, of local food, prepared by chefs, and each chef has their signature, and it's a really great time.
We're going to have farmers there, at least at most of the restaurants also. The farmers who actually grew the food will be present at the restaurant. You can meet the people and shake hands with them and talk to them about it.
We're delighted to have Gary Paul Nabhan here. He's the author of the Coming Home to Eat, where he set up as his goal to only eat food grown within 250 miles of his residence.
Wow.
And when you think that most food travels between 1,000 and 2,000 miles, he quickly was discovering what a challenge that was. And he's quite an original guy.
He lives in the desert.
He's quite an original guy, and he frightens his friends occasionally by, serving,
Sand?
insects.
Insects?
Sand,
He's
yeah.
just a daring guy. No, there's a lot of good food,
Yeah,
and
sure.
and that was his challenge, and his heart and spirit were really into it, and he's a great guy to come. So we're gonna have a book signing at the co-op, and then he will
What's the
read
book called again?
Coming Home to Eat.
I gotta read that.
But I mean, it's a great deal. It's like fabulous to eat all this fresh local food that the genetics weren't built to ship 2,000 miles. The genetics were built to be fabulously delicious, and it's a completely different culinary experience. So he'll be appearing at a book signing, and then also we'll be reading from his book on Friday night. There'll be a panel discussion on the politics of food Friday night also, and all these details are available on the website. The website is...
www.slowfoodiowa.org. All one word, Slow Food Iowa.
So you can catch more of that. And the panel discussion will be about the politics of food, and of course that will be pretty lively, and everyone has opinions. And really, the local foods movement is sort of bucking a larger trend to have international corporate homogenization where we exploit the resources and the people and end up with inferior food and poor health and profits and some bureaucrat, distant corporate, just like this is where the front is on food in terms of politics. So come and hear not just my opinions, but everybody else's on that on Friday night, the 12th. Saturday cooking demos at the Iowa City Farmers Market. So you look and go, wow, look at all this stuff, great. So then we're gonna have like a little table where some chefs will go, yeah, here's what I'm gonna make. And there'll be various fresh foods made right out of the products from the market. A farm tour with Jeanette of Fay Ridge Farm. And then a display of the cookbooks at the University of Iowa Library. Rare, ancient books.
That's an exciting thing, what's going on at the library, one of the largest collections of rare and antique cookbooks in the world. And it's right here in Iowa City, and people don't even know about it.
No one ever sees it.
Original Escoffier manuscripts, stuff that you're not allowed to even breathe on. They keep
Your
in glass
eyeballs would
cases
hurt
and
the
such.
page.
Yeah, amazing stuff. A really great resource. Recipes for cannibalism, if you're interested.
That was from 2:30 to 4:30. I don't know if that will be the highlight for you, but that will be 2:30 to 4:30.
Whatever you're into, you know, as long as it's local, eat somebody local.
Saturday afternoon. And then the big Slow Food Harvest Dinner. I have to ask Kurt to speak a little bit more about that. That will be 6 to 10, and it will include elk and bison. Then Sunday morning, if you
Pork and
enjoy...
bison.
Am I saying this right?
Yeah, it's not elk,
and
it's
bison.
pork. Yeah.
Pork and
But there will be elk at the Culinary Walk on Thursday night.
So you carnivores will have your chance to eat more than tomatoes.
All right.
And then there's a wild mushroom foray at 9 a.m. at Hickory Hill Park Sunday morning, and we're going to bring the edible species over to the Coralville store, the Coralville New Pioneer Co-op store, and have them laid out with identification, and then we'll have some brunch and coffee and sort of meet in the spirit of from
And we've
Fieldwood
got some
family.
folks from the Iowa Mycological Society, experts, so that we don't end up making any mistakes.
Ooh, good.
So everything is free and open, and everyone is welcome to come and have fun and participate. There's only 2 things for which a fee is charged, and that's the Culinary Walk Thursday, September 11th, and then the Slow Food Iowa Harvest Dinner.
All
Kurt,
right.
tell them more about the dinner.
That's going to be a barbecue. The Harvest Dinner this year is going to be a barbecue, and it's going to be held up at Jordan Creek Bison Ranch in Solon. So you'll be able to eat where buffalo roam. The real live thing are going to be just a few feet away from you. And they're big and beautiful, and it's a wonderful setting. Bill Leifers has the ranch up there, and it's just gorgeous. And we're gonna smoke bison and some Nyman Ranch pork shoulder, do that North Carolina style barbecue, and have all the fixins and such. And Gary and Kent will speak again at this thing, and it's gonna be a big to-do. And as Teresa pointed out, the two events of the weekend that cost money are benefits. One's for this festival, From Field to Family, to keep it going so we can do it again next year and so on. And then also for Table to Table and their food rescue operations, which are very, very important. And for Slow Food Iowa, it's going to use the money for the From the Ground Up School Gardens initiative.
All right. Well, sounds good. You know, one of the events you mentioned was the Fay Ridge Farm Tour, and we were lucky enough, the Iowa City Other News crew was lucky enough to get up to Fay Ridge Farm. So maybe we can take a sneak peek at that footage and show you all why you want to check this farm tour out.
We're here at Fay Ridge Farms today, and I want to talk with Jeanette Ryan Bush about her farm where she grows organic flowers and vegetables and many other products. And Jeanette, on September 13th, you're going to have a tour for the Farm to Family movement. Tell us about what you know about that.
Well, people are going to show up, I believe it's 1 o'clock, and last year we did this, and you know, we walk around, I talk about different aspects that are happening here at the farm, and then always ask people to ask questions, because the best responses from people are that come from people asking questions. But I'll talk about, some of the practices I use that maintain organics, rotation, and look at the livestock that I have here at the farm, which is part of what makes the system work as a whole. I have Indian runner ducks that are insect control for me, and I raise a fiber flock of, goats, llamas, and sheep that produce fertilizer for here at the farm. And so we'll talk about different varieties that I grow that work well in our climate, and and now it's getting to be a challenging year because it's drying out.
Yeah.
But
What are the advantages for people of eating produce that's locally produced as opposed to buying something, say, shipped in from California?
Well, first of all, for immediate flavor, there's a huge difference because, vegetables start to break down the second that they're picked. So the fresher they are, the better they are. Also, it is a huge, important thing in the grand scheme. People don't think of eating as a political act, but it is a huge political act. When you go to the grocery store and are buying mainstream produce, you are giving your money to someone who is spending it, who's taking it from you and spending it. And so, do you want to give your dollars to a farmer that is supporting a healthy ecosystem, or someone that is supporting, Monsanto and Dow? That's a really important thing to think about. And every time we buy produce from California or Hawaii, it takes all kinds of petroleum fuel to get it here. And I refer to it as each and every one of us has our own Exxon Valdez meter. And when you're buying produce from a long ways away, your meter just goes right up. You have requested that the world use more petroleum-based fuel. And when you're buying it local, it has not sucked down all this petroleum to get it to your table.
One thing I like about local produce too is that there's a connection between the producer and the consumer that's direct.
You can come to the farm, you can see where the products are grown, you can meet the people that grow them. The farmers market is another really great place to be getting in touch with those people and having an understanding of how your food is grown and what's involved with it. It's very, very, very important stuff.
Now, people can come here to Fay Ridge Farm and buy directly from you, but doesn't some of your produce also supply restaurants or stores in town?
I sell herbs and basil at New Pioneer Co-op, both locations, and also to the deli at New Pioneer. So a lot of my herbs and basil end up in the deli. I also supply, restaurants in town, Vito's, Atlas Grill, and and a little here and there to other local restaurants.
Great.
And then here at the store, I have, every Saturday and Sunday from 11 to 5 when I'm open, I have whatever's in season. So it fluctuates through the year.
This is August 24th, and it's pretty dry around here. How have you been coping with the drought?
We've actually, I'm north of town, and we've been a little bit more fortunate in some of our rains. I know it's dry further south of here, and I know it's dry further north of here, but we're really starting to dry out now. I'm seeing, everything's just kind of slowing down, and I'm fortunate I can water, and I have drip line, and I have overhead, but I haven't had to water much yet this year. I may be before the farm tour, next week I may be watering if we don't get something, but it's, you just try, and that's one of the other things about organic. If you have an organic system and you have a lot of organic matter in your soil, we survive drought better than soils that don't have microbial life, that don't have, organic matter in them. It's like my crops are less stressed than a garden that's been using, a chemical-based system, because there's just more life in the soil, so it holds it better.
I've noticed you have compost piles, several of them around.
Yeah, and I actually don't use compost because the national organic standards, you have to monitor your compost very, very closely. You have to keep temperature records on it and turn it, routine, just religiously. And so I use it on non-food crops, just so I don't have to meet those standards. But I do it, and so I have a rotation set up where I will put, corn or a green manure crop in one year, and at that point I add sheet raw manure, or I add compost, and then that's a non-food crop that year. Then the next year it'll go in, that plot would go into a food crop. And that's how, I deal with the issues of, because one of the things we're worried about with not properly composted anything is, bacteria, bad bacteria that's going to end up on food. And so, I feel like the national standards have really addressed this issue.
Organic food is really growing nationwide, and some large companies are getting involved in it. Where do you think the organic movement is headed?
Yeah, there are a lot. I mean, Dole is into it. Kellogg's is into it. We're seeing some of the real big companies get involved in this. And I actually think it's good because it creates more acres that are under organic production. It creates outlets for farmers to sell their goods to an organic market. And I think there's still a very good place for small local producers like myself and other people in the area. I don't think we're going to get squeezed out by this because people want to know where their food is coming from. People have, like you said, that connection with the farmer and the food. So I don't feel threatened by it. I guess I think as it becomes more mainstream, more people, it validates it more in a sense that it isn't kind of hippies on a half-acre flying kites, as Jim Hightower used to refer to this movement. And and that is what it used to be. And now it's becoming more and more mainstream all the time, which is, it means farm workers that are working in California and other areas in organic fields are not being exposed to toxic chemicals, and that's a very good thing. It means, and because organics is more labor intensive, it's more employment for people, which is another good thing in the grand scheme of a national economy.
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing.
Using more labor instead of machines and chemicals.
Yeah, because, there's, and one of the big questions people ask, I hear a lot is, why does organic food cost more? And it's because there's more labor involved. We can't go out there and spray. And since we aren't spraying, we have to go out there and manually cultivate or burn. I mean, there's people that, use flamers and they flame weeds out. Mm-hmm. But there's more manual labor involved, and that's part of the reason it costs more.
But it's better for us, too.
It's absolutely, and it costs us less in the long run because we are not going to have to pay to clean up the water, clean up the land, clean up the air, and go to the doctor all the time because you've got some kind of, strange health problems because you've, been eating something that they said, oh yeah, that's just fine. I mean, it's like they told us DDT was a great thing, and then, oops, we were wrong. And then, those are some of my concerns now about some of the, it's like GMOs, which is genetically modified organisms, and there's huge controversy about it now. And I just don't think there's been enough, there's no long-range studies. I want to see a long-range perspective on this before I start ingesting it. And, and that's one of the, it's a big concern to organic farmers right now. Yeah. Because we've been using, BT for years. Now that they've got BT corn out there, it's really wiping out the potential. It's also, people are worried about, genetic transfer through pollen. There's a lot of, Yeah. So supporting organic farmers means, you're supporting an industry that is good to the planet, and you're supporting those local people. And every time you spend $1 locally, it goes around the community 5 different times. So if you give me $1, I'm going to go into town and I'm going to spend it somewhere in town, and maybe it'll come back to you.
I'll take it.
Well, it's like that's the beauty of supporting a local economy, is that we all support each other.
Yeah. All right. Thanks a lot, Jeanette.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the August 30th edition of Iowa City's Other News. We're talking about local food, and we just saw a successful example of a local organic farm. Unfortunately, we don't have a grower here to talk with us. That'd be great. There will be growers at the event you were telling us about, but what do you see locally beyond Fay Ridge Farm? Is there potential for growth here? Are there a lot of people doing this kind of thing? Or
Oh, sure.
Yeah?
Lots and lots and lots of them. I should give a little bit of credit to another absent friend. Carol Hunt deserves an awful lot of credit for really getting the local food movement, giving it traction around here. She has, through some grant work that she's done, put together a directory of local food producers, both organic and not, but all local family farms and that kind of thing. And there are, at last count, somewhere around 140 or 150 people listed in this directory, which you can get directly from her through the Johnson County Soil and Water Conservation District at the ISU Extension Office down near the fairgrounds. And you can also look at it at the same website where this information is, slowfoodiowa.org. I have an electronic listing on there, and you can contact these people, look for what kind of food you want to find, somebody who's near your house. It's Johnson County and contiguous counties all the way around it, and it's a great resource. And Carol Hunt really did some tremendous work making that happen.
All right, that's good news. Now, as far as these local farms are concerned, we were talking about this a little before the show, and I'd like to especially get your opinion too on this, Dave, but all of you sound in on this for sure. We're seeing this locally, and it looks like a good thing, but, the United Nations is really concerned about food production for the growing population of the world. Maybe we're going to have 10 billion people in 50 years or something. So can this work on a large global scale? What do you all think?
That's a very charged subject. The thing is, there's enough food to feed all the people in the world. The problem is distributing that food. So genetically modified foods are not going to cure hunger, because there's still going to be someone taking tax money or whatever is causing the ill distribution of food. I think, actually, my own opinion is that we have to sort it out. We have to decentralize how food's grown, mainly from a nutritional point of view. The freshness factor is key. An orange has lost 50% of its vitamin C one day after it's picked, for example. And that's true of all food. The nutrition content decreases with shelf life. So I kind of think it's imperative, actually, that we all start supporting this kind of movement. Yeah, and there are plenty of people doing their own gardens in their home, in season, supplying, these are from your garden?
These are, yeah, not all of them, but the ones over here.
But, things like tomatoes, it's just not, you can supply yourself and most of your neighbors with tomatoes. As we know, I'm getting calls for basil and tomatoes, so it's certainly going on. Hit the farmer's market and you'll just see, there's really small family farms down there, and just people, some of them it's just a hobby, but it's a way to make extra money, and it's also giving that great nutrition to people.
Well, I think what really needs to happen in the third world is some attention needs to be paid, some Peace Corps type work in these various places, teaching people again how to grow the food that's native to that place, that grows well there, because they're all being turned into commodity suppliers for us rich Americans. People on the Ivory Coast using chemicals to grow cocoa beans out in the sunshine in these huge things that look like cornrows. It's not the way cocoa was meant to be raised. It should be raised in the shade. And then the sunny spots can be used to raise stuff that needs sun, like yucca root and stuff that grows there natively. And then the people will have food that they've grown to eat, instead of having to pour all these chemicals onto the ground, ship the cocoa beans up to Belgium for all the rich people, get a little bit of money back for that, and then use that money to turn to the global economy and try to buy what they can from that. It's not going to work.
Yeah, this is going on a lot. I think a few years ago, India got hit with basically, large quantities of food get grown. Subsistence farmers are pushed off the land where they can grow. They were growing what they needed. Now they have to grow something, give it away, or sell it away, and then use that money to then buy something else from someone else, when previously it was not an extravagant lifestyle, but there was enough food to eat. And all of a sudden, with the global economy, there's not enough food on a local level. That's what the potato famine in Ireland was. There was potatoes in Ireland, the Irish couldn't afford them because the English were very into the free market at the time. And
They still are.
they said, yeah, they said, well, they shipped all the potatoes out, you know, so.
It's sort of like, well, once I thought the Peace Corps worker had a good mission. They were going to instruct the ignorant natives in the South American country how to stop causing erosion problems. And when the Peace Corps worker got down there, they saw that the reason that the native peoples were attempting to claw a little bean patch out of the side of the mountain, which was erosion prone, was because vast tracts of fertile, well-watered, rich land were all growing pineapples, coconut, bananas. Everything was all being shipped out and was under the control of a corporation that had no interest in the native people's well-being. And so our Peace Corps people were going down there to scold the people who are trying to get a few beans to feed their family. And it was just like, oh.
Right, well, the key point and the word that we haven't come up with that is key to this festival too is sustainability. I mean, this is why local economy is much more sustainable and a lot more able to adapt to the knocks of you know, whether it be weather, whatever can cause economic problems. If you're self-sustaining, you have a much better chance of riding that storm. Whereas if you're getting all your rice from one place, say, and there's some bad weather somewhere or whatever goes on, suddenly there's no rice for anyone. But if the whole thing is decentralized and everyone is growing a little bit, then there's much more possibility for riding whatever storms appear, you know, be that poverty, hunger, bad weather, you know. You see what I'm saying?
That brings up also a very important issue of traceability, knowing where your food came from and how it was prepared. And when it's grown by the farmer down the road, and you know the guy, and shake hands with him on a regular basis, this level of trust builds up, and you can feel better about your food. You know, it's I believe I saw it on a bumper sticker one time, but. If it's really true, the old saw about you are what you eat, then most Americans are fast, cheap, and easy.
Yeah.
And is that really the way you want to live your life? It's a matter of deep spiritual necessity that we know more about the food that we're putting into ourselves and putting into our children. And on top of that, there's a cultural aspect that we're losing because of all this convenient food, this mistaking of frenzy for efficiency, that teaches people that food is just fuel. I just need to pull up to the pit stop at the drive-through window, grab some stuff, shove it in my face, and I can go on about working to get more money so that I can go back to the drive-through. That's life? No, that's not life. Yeah. We need to be able to center it around a table. You know?
Right, and another thing that pops up here as you speak, I'm particularly, organic food is forefront. I run an organic restaurant, so it's important to me. And one of the reasons for that is the variety. It's very important genetically for us, for all species, to have variety. And one of the things that the commodification of food has done is diminish variety. There's about 4 or 5 apples distributed around the world, and there are countless apple varieties, but they've homogenized it down to the Golden Delicious, the Red Delicious, the Granny Smith, a couple of others.
There's other kinds of apples?
Yeah, imagine it.
No.
Imagine. And the reason for that is they hold up to shipping.
Oh, all right.
Same with the tomatoes. The reason heirloom tomatoes aren't grown is because they don't ship.
You bring up an interesting point, though, and one that I enjoyed debating with a lot of people, this balance between, well, what's more important? Should I buy locally or should I buy organically? And sometimes you can't do both, so then you go, well, which one's more important?
Well, I think the important thing is to be thinking about that choice. Everyone is free to make that choice and should do as they feel, but the issue needs to be, I mean, the point being, if the issue is in awareness, conscious awareness, that's what our goal is to make people think, oh, should I buy organic or local? Because if they're saying that,
if they're choosing between those two,
they're doing pretty well.
Yeah.
You know what, or you know, exactly.
Right. Well, one place where I see a lot of progress being made on these traceability, diversity, and education issues that you talk about is at New Pioneer Co-op. Teresa, I think you can tell us a little more about the work that goes on there to try and highlight, I mean, just I was in there this morning and I saw, part of this sign will also tell you where it comes from. Is it from a farm? What farm is it from? Tell us more about what happens at New Pioneer.
Well, there's many ways that you can support your local food producers. And I just can't help but throw in that supporting your local food producers enhances your food security. So although like a child we're excited by oranges and almonds and olive oil, I myself love those, but I have realized that my glee in those products will be slapped down when I realize the cost of war to pay for the fossil fuels to fertilize and transport these. It like really sobers me up, and I want to live more modestly on my little earth in a sacred way and not have the burden of this on my conscience or on my land and on my heart that my country is going to war to get all this. It just doesn't fit the rest of my life. So I feel it works on so many different levels to support the local producers. We got great tomatoes here, and you can buy them at the farmer's market, or you could go directly to the tomato grower, or you could come to the New Pioneer Co-op. And we have 2 stores, one in Iowa City and Coralville. And really, we've been supporting local producers since before it was even an idea talked about, because we want to have the best quality and the freshest. And you can come in, and if you can't grow these great exotic tomatoes, you can buy them at the co-op. And everything is fresh and in season, and it's a fresh food market shop and a fresh food approach to culinary delight. So if you can show up at your fresh food market or your farmer's market, you can come out ahead on so many different fronts. It's really a fun thing. this is not a hair shirt experience.
All right. Well, these are the farms, the grocery stores, the farmer's market. Let's now look at, well, maybe I don't want to cook tonight, Maybe it's time to go out. Saved up some cash. We went out to Dave's Red Avocado and actually had a chance to talk with Derek and Dave and got some shots of the restaurant. Let's check that out now.
Liz McDade Montes, here at the Red Avocado for Iowa City's Other News. Tell me a little bit about why you started the Red Avocado and what it's all about here in Iowa City.
Sure. Started it as an extension of ourselves, I guess. It's all related to our ideals and what we feel, things such as local food.
Yeah, also, I mean, to add to that, we do vegetarian food, and we use all organic.
Why you feel that it's better to use local food?
Local food comes from the soil, which we're all living upon. It doesn't incur all the transportation expenses that maybe a trucked-in item would.
Nutrient-wise, fresh. The fresher the food, the sooner you eat it after you pick it, the more nutrients it has, the more life force it has. Yeah, very much keeping dollars in the local economy is really important, I think, especially in times like these,
Do you use any outside food ever? And if you do, how do you make the decision and when do you do that?
Almost all our food is grown outside. But no, but seriously, yeah, it is Iowa. All the food we use is seasonally based, meaning right now we're using tomatoes, eggplants, and we try to avoid things like tomatoes and eggplants in, say, January, when they're coming from northern Mexico or what have you. So our menu changes to reflect that. But since we are open all 4 seasons of the year, we do buy stuff from local distributors and also national distributors that come primarily from California in the cold months. We grow a lot of our own produce, and the reason that we grow a lot of our own produce is to fill in voids of things we can't find and we know that we can get, or things we want to experiment around with. And we use such small amounts of certain items that it's not worth us approaching a farmer, have them do all the hassle of growing something that's real specialty and then turn around and sell it to us for just a few dollars. And that way we keep it fresh up until, like this morning I picked the herbs that we're going to use this evening, so everything's picked and real fresh.
So what has your response been from Iowa City and from your customers? What kind of feedback do you get?
We get a lot of positive feedback. We have quite a few regular customers that come in here and come back again.
Are there other things that you do as a restaurant, as a business, other deliberate practices that you might engage in? Maybe being vegetarian or other things that you're doing for your employees that you want to comment on?
Sure, I guess ideals. So what are the restaurant ideals, right? We try to be as sustainable as possible along those lines. We pay our employees absolutely as much as we can. We compost all our food waste. We recycle everything that we can that's recyclable. We support any local businesses that we can when we buy our products outside of food. You know, we buy local food, but we also buy, you know, we go to local contractors for our work, or we try to go to local stores to get other supplies, things like that. We do a lot with the local charities, the local community gardens. We try to give back at least as much as we get from the community, if not more.
Welcome back to the August 30th edition of Iowa City's Other News. We're talking about local food. We were just at the Red Avocado on that last tape segment, and I want to turn over the conversation now to talk about more about where the restaurants in the area come into, you know, serving up local food. What restaurants are doing it? How do you do it? You both are from restaurants. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, there are several now that are buying local food. And they are all helping out with this event, or nearly all of them are. 10 years ago, when I got here, no one or almost no one in the restaurant business was doing it. But and I found it very difficult to find sources to do it in the places where I was working. But gradually over that time, there's been a big increase in the availability and a big increase in well, in the restaurant world here. There wasn't much as far as really, really good restaurants were concerned 10 years ago. But now we've got, you know, in terms of population, more than our fair share, I'd say, which is a great thing. But there's, besides our places, Devotee and Red Avocado, there's Atlas World Grill, 126, well, the Co-op, obviously.
IMU, New Pioneer
The IMU, which is a huge operation. Their University of Iowa catering operation buys local food, and that's investing university money back into the community, which, you know, needs to happen a bit more. So I think that's a great thing.
And the Motley Cow.
And the Motley Cow, and Jeanette was saying on your video there something that I didn't even know. Vito's is buying herbs from her. That's fabulous. That's what we're trying to make happen. More of it.
All right.
There's local cheese that's being made here through Local Harvest CSA up in Solon, and several of the restaurants use that.
Good stuff. So the restaurants are using it, and we brought a little bit in here today. Can you all tell us about, I mean, Teresa, start us off here with the things you brought in.
Well, you may have seen calendars or catalogs that have exotic tomatoes in them, and you don't have to just look at the pictures. You can actually taste all these at your farmer's market or at the co-op. Different varieties. Such a funny looking tomato as this is a Cherokee Purple. And its appearance is quite dark throughout. So this is actually how it looks when it's ripe. The classic Brandywine has been laughed at for being homely, but is very delicious, a real standard of excellence. There's the Orange Banana, Amish Paste, Standard Romas, and the Tennessee Gold.
Tennessee Gold. Can you all see this?
That
The
color,
Tennessee
that coming
Gold?
through.
I love those yellow tomatoes. They're slightly less acid. They're just, so you can eat a million of them and it doesn't give you chapped lips.
Oh, okay.
And then we were saying, well, what is this one? We couldn't figure out which this one. This must be, we think perhaps this is an Amish paste that had a really good life.
Yeah.
So, and of course the paste tomatoes will have more pulp inside, so when they cook they'll be more substance for your sauce.
Yeah.
So those are some great tomatoes. These were raised by Scott Kepke, a grocer at New Pioneer, and at the Fay Ridge Farm, Jeanette's place.
Cool. All right. What else? Take us through the
We got lots
table.
more, and brought some ones that my wife Kim has dried at home. Big variety of them. This is roughly 1/10 of what we have so far.
Is this the Brandywine?
And this was done with a standard, you know, Ronco food dryer. These are Brandywines, right? And yellow pear tomatoes, and these are evergreens. This used to be this.
Which one is that?
This is called an evergreen.
Oh.
Which looks a little bit like a slightly more popular heirloom, the green zebra, but it's not quite the same flavor. This one has a bit more acid to it. We have a big variety here as well, but my favorite one, and I'm going to pass this one around to you guys. These are the peach tomatoes. They're fuzzy, like peaches.
And these were illegal in Iowa up till last year, right?
What do you mean?
Illegal?
Fuzzy.
But I want to cut into a couple of these things and get you to have a taste. We'll pass them around, and you folks out there in TV land, while we're down on South Dubuque Street, if you want to come down and have some. I'll cut that even smaller for us here.
So
Just
this is
pass
an
them
example
around.
of the seed heritage, the great diversity of varieties that are available for you to grow and that have been cultivated by the Amish, the Mennonite, the ethnic groups have marvelous variety which is being lost. And so Kent Wheely from the Seed Savers will address the erosion of our genetic heritage because, you know, these may not be available. They may just die out unless someone consciously continues to grow them and save the seeds. And so the whole Seed Savers concept is protecting the genetic heritage of plant, and of course this erosion of genetic diversity is happening globally, along with the reduction in the numbers of crops and the selection of crops for shippability and profitability run contrary in many cases to the needs of humanity.
Yeah, you can taste the vitamins in this stuff. This was on the vine about an hour and a half ago.
Wow.
Amazing flavor, and as
Let's
she says,
keep
these
tasting
are
that.
not. Well, we taste some other ones too.
Yeah.
And these are not bred to be shipped. You know, those tomatoes that you find in December and January at the Hy-Vee, they are actually picked green, packed into boxes, into train cars, and then while they're being shipped from Mexico or California or wherever up to Chicago to distribution points, they are pumping ethane gas into the train cars. So when the tomato leaves Mexico green, they open up the train car in Chicago and they're red. Now that ethane gas is what the tomato plant itself uses to ripen the tomato, but this is the artificial stuff, and it's pumped in train cars. It's really unappetizing when you think about where it comes from.
Wow.
Here's that one's a little underripe. I'm going to go for this one.
What's funny is that the green one is fully ripe and just delicate, delicious
Yeah.
flavor.
Not like the green
The
ones on the
inside.
screen.
Yeah, it's not like green. You think it's green, you think it's not ripe.
Look at the inside of it. Yeah, this
Oh,
is
wow.
not the sort of green tomato that you get for fried green tomatoes. But it's great to eat like this.
Well,
Now,
while
here,
we're
this one's
testing-
higher acid here.
While we're tasting the rest of these, let's we went down to the farmers market to see what the what the community thinks about local food. Let's see some of the responses we got at the farmers market.
Okay, well, the reason I'm here at the Iowa City Farmers Market is because I like to support the local growers, and it's also good to see, kind of judge the seasons on by what people are bringing down here. And it's just nice to walk around and smell everything, because it really smells good.
I come here quite often. My office is just across the street from the parking ramp, and I can get vegetables that taste like vegetables rather than taste like they've been carted across the country in a truck.
I came to the farmers market today because I like to buy organic produce, and I also like to support the local farmers and the local agriculture. And the food is great, and the prices are cheap.
Well, I'm looking for dill. I'm going to be doing some pickles, so this is the only place I could think of to come to get some heads of dill.
Oh, really?
Let's see, I like the farmer's market because you can find good quality things like very small zucchinis or very fresh melons. Prices are cheap. It's fun. You might see friends, learn something.
Mainly because you're buying directly from the people who are growing the foods, and I would rather see the profits go directly toward people and to the people who are doing the work. And I think there's a way that it feeds into community where you're aware of where your resources come from and how you're using them, and it's festive.
All right, so that was the farmers market. We see that the community's getting behind this movement too, but is it accessible to everyone? It's organic food costs more. Is there a way to make this food more affordable for people who are lower income?
Well, it costs more in one sense. We could do a whole nother show on the hidden cost of cheap food.
Yeah.
But on another way to look at it, though, is that expense can be solved with a little bit of education. A lot of people have forgotten or never learned in the first place how to cook, and not just the mechanics of it, but the joy of it and the conviviality of it and bringing your family together in the kitchen and around the table is all being lost. If people will take a moment to relearn the stuff that their grandparents knew, then using these items in an economical way becomes a great deal more accessible to even to low income, the stereotypical single mom struggling by and so on.
So cooking is one solution.
Learning how to do it right, rather than, cooking is not a chore. Cooking is not washing windows or doing the laundry. Cooking is what separates us from the rest of the animal kingdom, really. We apply heat to our food. No other animal does that.
Well, I think that really you are nurturing yourself at a number of different levels. Not only are you sparing the environment the blight of the chemicals when you choose organic, and you're sparing the environment the blight of all the fossil fuel burned when you choose local. Not only are you sparing yourself the risk of food insecurity, if we should be cut off from our trucks and our electricity and so forth, what would we eat, I mean, you can really take the food that's lively and create simple, easy meals. I mean, busy people don't have time to prepare elaborate sauces. We look to our restaurants to do that, but just the basic elements that build health when they're fresh and locally grown have a certain energy and flavor that's so appealing you can make delicious meals with relatively little fuss. I mean, there's no need to have large amounts of meat, although I know everyone loves their meat. There will be a vegetarian option at the dinner, I wanted to say.
Thank you. Thanks.
About the barbecue, yep.
But one does not need to fuss a lot to have delicious, healthful meals. The whole fresh food concept is the food itself shines with its own flavor and energy, and you're like the vehicle through which it moves, and you wash it and chop it and get it on the table, and everybody goes, wow, this is great. And that's, sort of sharing it and celebrating what we can do here in an easy, light way. I mean, that's really where it's at, and anybody can do that. And it spares you. So you want to feel good at the end of the day and still have time for your hobbies or friends. And if you're living on substandard nutrition, you won't. You'll think you have to go to the doctor for mental or physical health remedies and prescriptions when if you were truly nurturing yourself at the physical level and the spiritual level, you might be thriving better. Yeah. And children desperately need good health, and they need to know where their food comes from. And so it all works together in a big circle, and I think education is part of the key, and we are a very well-educated community here, and that's partly why it's thriving, but there's farmers markets everywhere.
I often say that when I'm talking about slow food, that if you stop for a moment and think about it, think about the best moments in your life, the really great moments in your life, your very favorite ones. I'll bet you 95% of them were events where you were gathered around a table with people you love and great food in front of you. So you want to create more of those moments, and they don't have to be just the weddings, graduations, and funerals. They can be Saturday afternoon.
Can you do it with a pizza pocket, though? With a whole bunch of pizza pockets on the table?
No, you can't. I mean, you might have a good time. Some beer would probably help. But, if you've created something with your hands and with the people who you love in mind while you do it, that emotion, that spirituality will conduct itself into the food and be related out to them. Now, this sounds like mystical hocus pocus, and I suppose in one sense maybe it is, but it works. So it's something that should be emphasized.
But fortunately, it works at so many different levels.
Yeah. It works at a number of levels. Actually, there was a guy who did a study on a population in Switzerland. His name was Weston Price, and he was going to places where there was no processed food and checking out their diet, and he was a dentist, so he was checking for cavities. And in Switzerland, one little side, the children had green slime on their teeth, but they had no cavities because they ate cream. They had a really high dairy diet. Anyway, suffice to say, this town in Switzerland had no crime. They didn't have a police force before the introduction of processed foods. So the ramifications of this hocus pocus stuff are actually quite far-reaching.
And processed food leads to violence.
I mean, the sugar connection is pretty clear. going back to the education aspect, I think in terms of low income, eating seasonally is pretty key because when food is plentiful, it's cheap. Tomatoes right now are very cheap. In January, they will not be cheap. You'll be able to get them, but they won't be cheap. So we have to remove our idea that, in one sense, that we can choose what we want to eat because the land should be choosing what we eat for us. And another thing, for low-income groups, grains are very, very cheap, and that should be the bulk of your diet anyway. So, you know, you can not buy that 2-gallon of Pepsi or Coca-Cola and buy something else instead. I mean, that would be where. And the other side is if you can't eat all organic, oh well, eat as much as you can. You know, just because you can't do 100% doesn't mean you then do 0%. Because, you know, that's a key point too. Anything you can do is helpful.
Really, food in its natural state is relatively inexpensive.
Right.
And plant foods are relatively inexpensive, and for best health and energy and appearance, rely on plant foods. The animal products are generally more expensive, and also where the undesirable elements concentrate as they move up the food chain.
In the world is going to feed animals.
Yeah,
it takes
Iowa doesn't grow food. Iowa grows feed.
It takes 4 times as much food, grain, to produce that 1 unit of meat. So
use meat
that's
as a
where
condiment.
that's where the hunger is coming from.
Like most of the world does.
Yeah, if they see it at all,
Right.
on high feasts and holy days.
I wanted to get a moment into to talk about what slow food is. It can often get misconstrued or misunderstood. Slow food is a 15-year-old international eco-gastronomic educational organization. It is not, contrary to popular belief, a bunch of snobby yuppies stuffing their craws with foie gras. We work very hard at preserving and revitalizing the flavors that are being lost due to the standardization and industrialization of flavor. We don't have any illusions that we're going to stop the McDonald's of the world. We just want to work to counteract the degrading cultural effects that things like McDonald's and ADM and Monsanto are having on the world. And it's a delight because we get to do all this very important work while having a wonderful time doing it. Holding dinners, putting together festivals like the one that we've been talking about today, doing educational stuff. We're working very hard with the local school district in building the new schools that they just got the money for, building them from the ground up around gardens. And the food that's raised there can get used in the schools. It's a very exciting project.
Well, I'm glad that Slow Food's here. I mean, it's fantastic.
Sure.
And the festival, of course, is going to be a great way for us all to learn more about slow food. Now we're going to shift gears on the show a little bit. We have an editorial piece we do every week. It's called Where's the Outrage? Today, our very own Teresa Seeberger is outraged, and let's hear why.
Hi, this is Teresa Seeberger with Where's the Outrage? And as I always like to say is if you're not outraged, then you're not paying attention. Today's outrage goes to the heart of democracy. It has to do with the voting process, the voting system in our country. As truthout.org says, democracy is the only protection that we have against despotic and arbitrary government, which perhaps we already have, because according to many, the last election, the presidential election, was stolen. And perhaps even in 2002, we've been having problems. Diebold Company is a major owner of electronic, computerized electronic voting systems, which are becoming the big type of system, since we seem to think that there's a huge problem with paper ballot systems. It's something called DRE, or Direct Recording Electronics. What this process does is completely eliminate paper ballots from the voting system. So the entire election process hinges on the correctness, the security, and the security of software involved. Someone probably with Diebold Electronics, which is owned, the CEO is a Republican, and the board of directors consistently make tens of thousands of dollars worth of contributions to the Republican National Convention, to George Bush and other Republican senatorial candidates. At any rate, a study was conducted on the source code for the particular system for their computerized voting system, and this was done by some researchers at both Rice University as well as at Johns Hopkins University. And it was found out that, or determined that there are vulnerabilities within the system used in this type of voting. Essentially, a voter is given a smart card, which is supposed to enable the voter to go into the booth and only cast one vote. However, 15-year-old computer enthusiasts, literally people with much knowledge and ability or desire to look into this, can create their own smart cards, sell them to people, and you could ostensibly go into the voting machine, go into the voting area, pull out your own smart card, forget the one that the people gave you at the election counter, pull out your own smart card, insert it into the electronic gadget for voting, and you could register multiple votes by using basically a fraudulent card that you brought into the voting booth. We don't have much time for this, Where's the Outrage, because we've had this great show on food, but we hope in the future perhaps to bring you more, because this is the future of our country's democracy. If we're going to be able to have proper democratic elections, and the voting is everything in that sense. So I will cut it short for today. Oh, but first I do want to mention, if it's not already on the stands, look soon for a book by journalist Bev Harris. It's Black Box Voting, Ballot Tampering in the 21st Century, where she talks about many studies, et cetera, having to do with situations that have already gone on in the past where voting discrepancies and oddities are surfacing, either because of the electronics or other types of voting systems. Anyhow, I'll kick it back to Elliot so we can wrap up the show, and thanks for watching.
All right, thank you, Teresa. We definitely have to keep a close eye on our voting and a close eye on our food. I want to thank all of you for coming to the show today. This has been a really enlightening discussion. I think we've got a minute or so left. Are there any?
I want to show them this.
Yeah, all right. Get into that beet.
Yeah,
Let's,
this is a good one. This is a Chioggia beet. This was grown at the Red Avocado Gardens. And it is a beautiful thing.
Oh, man.
Just so we can see it.
The community gardens can help supply from table to table, which is a food rescue operation. So when we talk about those persons who are economically disadvantaged, how will they get fresh food? The answer is we have lots of great soil and lots of great seeds and community gardens, so we can all participate and help make a garden together and harvest from it. These gardens exist in our community already, and the surplus then is donated to Table, which distributes it to those persons in need. So there's lots of opportunities to assist those who are less privileged economically.
Wow, another great way to open.
I'd like to point out to everybody out there to go looking for these posters. They're up all over town. I hope the White Balance can pick these up. And to please come and join us on the festival, September 11th to the 14th, from Field to Family. If you need more information, you can visit our website, Slow Food Iowa, all one word, .org. And all the information is there, everything you need to know, ways to contact us if you have any questions.
Tickets at the co-op.
Tickets available for the two parts of it that cost are available at either co-op location.
Okay, thanks a bunch.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you out at the From Field to Family Festival. Okay, can we taste that one?
Yes, I was going to do that.
Yeah.
Can you eat it raw?
How many roads must a man walk down before he's called a man?
And how many seas must the white dove sail before he sleeps in the sand?
How many times must the cannonballs